Okay, so I'm a rag. I went to the gym and I did my running around as I'm sure you guys are doing. So we are seeing computer models kind of hint at the same. I don't want to call it a switch. I don't want to call it a deviation. I don't want to call it anything except it's just kind of meandering a little bit. So let me show you what we're looking at. All right, here's where we are. Here's our satellite. Now, satellite just shows you clouds, but it shows you the size. And honestly, at this point, the size is important. So here it is. You know, yesterday we looked at this and we said, all right, we've got it kind of staying north of Dominican Republic. It would stay north of Haiti, and it did. There was barely any kind of interaction, so the winds didn't really change very much. Hi, Betsy, how you doing? And now here it is. Now, what you're noticing, and here, there's the eye. Doesn't look quite so prominent. Doesn't mean anything because, as you guys now know, it's got 155 mile an hour wind. So not a Category 5 because it's been modified. The scale's been modified a little bit, but we're still up there at the top end of a Category 4. So, all right, there's the eye. Here's Cuba. It's going to ride up the spine. That's what it's doing right now. Now, there is some good news insofar as it's high trend from Atlanta. I hope you guys are set too. But you've got the winds kind of moving across land. You've got a lot of mountains, which is, you know, high terrain, and it's kind of disrupting the circulation just a bit. All it's doing, it's slowed down the winds a little bit. That's honestly all we're seeing at this point. But that's where it is. Now, I'm going to modify this a little bit. Here's your grid. The grid, this is latitude and longitude. And you can see, again, now you get to see really just how big it is. So these are we call the outer bands, feeder bands, they're rotating. Everything goes counterclockwise, so you've got bands of rain and wind, and these come with some breaks. This is the eye wall. You know, the orange and then maybe almost the red there that you're seeing, it's the brunt of the hurricane. So this is really the worst part. The eye, nothing's happening, but by the time you get there, you had to endure all of that. All right, so watch the way it's going. Right, look at the grid. You can see it's not moving due west, so it won't just kind of move across the land. Hey, Donna, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. It's moving slightly north of west. So when I'm posting it, I'm telling you it's going west-northwest at about, and I think right now the speed is 14 miles an hour. You can actually see the way it's going, right? Watch the center. Doesn't move this way. It moves that way overall, but a little bit up. All right, so now what are we looking at? And, you know, this is where we're just watching this and trying to figure it all out. And we're watching this with you. This lets me put on, let's see, what does it let me put on? It lets me put on some forecast points. This one's a little tougher to see, guys, by the way. So you get these really tiny icons where the hurricane center thinks. Remember, these are the experts, so this is who we're going with. But this is where the hurricane center thinks it will end up in these different time frames. But watch what they're thinking, because we haven't really changed now. We've almost got 24 hours of a more consistent approach as it heads toward Florida. So it's heading northwest, still up the spine of Cuba. There could be a bit more interaction, and yes, there could be a little bit more weakening. Can't bank on anything. That's the problem. Here it is. Of course, here's the Keys. So you've got the Florida Straits, and of course there's the lower end of the peninsula. So it still continues its approach. There is but no doubt we are going to be impacted. That's a fact. And Rick Knabb is the director to the National Hurricane Center. He's a good guy. He really is. I didn't mean to do that, so I apologize. And I heard him last night, and he's really just trying to encourage people to get out. You're in a high rise. You think you're above the water level. You're not going to be safe. You may actually escape the storm. However, the winds higher up are a little bit stronger. And that really is because you don't have as much friction. So if the winds are stronger and you're high up in an apartment complex, what really is going to happen there is, as those winds come in, you're going to get your damage. So all that's going to happen at the highest levels, and then maybe the hurricane moves through, but you're all by yourself. And if you need help, nobody can get in and see you and help you and bring you supplies or rescue you. So when you're hearing about all these people that are leaving, I'm telling you, right now, this is really our window, because tomorrow, especially in South Florida, this is really where the impact is going to begin. So we're going to, hey, Connie from Nashville, I hope you guys are doing okay. This is really where everything's going to start. So we'll start to see some pictures. We'll start to see what's happening. Unfortunately, once we start seeing what's happening, we will know for sure how it impacts us up here. But what we do know right now, let's go back to maps. here we are, right? I'll add the line, you like it, I hate it. All right, and yesterday I was kind of encouraging you guys not to look at that 4 and 5 thing because you may have noticed a little bit of a wobble. It's gone from right, east to left, west. It'll keep going back and forth. Here's where the confidence is. The confidence here says the cone is a little bit smaller, the distance here is a little bit more narrow. That's because this is where everything in a short term is just a little bit more accurate. So look what they're doing. I'm really trying to zoom this in for you guys so you can see this. Roseanne, you're just so very welcome. I'm trying to help here. There's the center of what the Hurricane Center is thinking. You can look at the time, but here's Saturday. Remember just how big it is. So Saturday morning, really, it's almost across the middle of the entire island. And then on Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, it starts to leave. So yes, as it stays close to the coastline, there can be a little bit more of that weakening. There could be. You can't bank on anything, though. It's just so big. And then here it goes. It lifts a little bit more toward the northwest, right? Kind of approaches the Keys here. But remember, as large as it is, all of the effects are not at this point. They're not going to follow the skinny line. They're much more impressive. So remember, it kind of fills in one of these boxes. That's how big the storm is. I don't even know what we can. We can go back to this so I can remind you just how big it is, right? So think about the fact, as large as it is, it would be almost the size of Cuba. All right, let's use that. And then we lost one of these, but we'll get there soon enough. Here it is. All right, so it's really big. It's covering one of these boxes, and as soon as it's in this area, the northern side of Cuba, the northwestern side of the spine, it's right there on the coastline. Nivea, you know what? I hope you guys are safe in Panama City. I have my cousin started, and she's over there, and she's a little nervous, but you guys are actually in pretty good shape at this point. So here it is, that big, and then it starts to come in. So it's going to start to impinge on the lower end of the peninsula. And so the timing of this, as the Hurricane Center is showing it, because we're going to rely on them the most, Saturday morning, right? Saturday morning, the center is right there, right? Because it's going to be across the middle of the country, that whole island, and it's really, really big. So we're going to start to see some of these outside bands starting to kind of impinge on the Keys. And then, of course, immediately, because of the way it moves and the way it rotates, we're going to see some impact right here on the southeast side of the peninsula. So for those of you that have left, you make me very, very happy because you're going to have a pretty high storm surge, right? Everything coming in off the water. The only good news here is that at least the continental shelf on that side is a little bit deeper, so it can hold it a little bit better. But that counterclockwise rotation, the winds are going to be strong, the storm surge is going to be high, and then they have it moving. So let's try to play it out. Right? I mean, worst case scenario, but again, short term should be, generally good, not necessarily perfect or accurate, but generally good. It does that, and then it moves inland and it moves up the peninsula. What happens now? The right side of direction of motion a little bit stronger. The right side a little bit stronger, so the east coast may have some slightly stronger winds. The west coast is still going to have an impact. This thing is huge. So we're going to have hurricane force winds on either side, but look for most of the peninsula of Florida to be experiencing some of these hurricane force winds. And of course, again, that would be a fear. Then, of course, 4 and 5 days out is the least accurate. Let me show you something. I don't mean to be preaching to you guys, but I'm trying to pull everything up quickly. Here's what they're thinking in terms of the timing of the winds. So I probably should have looked at this before I said what I said, but I think we're in agreement here. Here's Saturday morning. Right? So this is the earliest reasonable arrival time of at least tropical storm force winds, Saturday morning. And again, this is South Florida. So the Keys, the southern end of the peninsula, this is where it hits. It'll keep moving. Now we're going to see the turn. The turn is just not coming fast enough. We would love for it to turn. Well, it's still kind of coming up the backside of Cuba, but it's not turning then. So it's going to turn as it moves up. And so then we're going to just watch deterioration of conditions across the state. There's really no other way to say it. Saturday morning, it starts in South Florida. By Saturday evening, the middle of the state is going to have its fair share of, wind, rain, everything else. Here's Sunday morning. Now, Sunday morning, it looks like it's almost in that Gainesville area, but then it kind of tilts a little bit and it kind of heads this way. Now, what you'll see for us, we are a little bit closer to what perhaps could be some of these hurricane force winds. Certainly tropical storm, and farther to the west, less of an impact. Farther to the west, your winds here would only be tropical storm force, but of course the closer to the center, the more on the hurricane force. So all you guys that have gone out and bought your supplies and prepared and maybe took some heat for being so ambitious about this, and this is what I'm trying to call it, ambitious, you honestly, you guys are all doing the right thing. Okay, this is not Irma. I just want to show you this, not for fun, just because I want you guys to realize, how tricky this stuff is. This is going back to 2012. Going back to 2012. This, by the way, is Hurricane Sandy. And so there it is, Hurricane Sandy. Now, this was Sunday. This is the 28th. Now, I'm going to play it for you. And what you're going to watch the cone. Now, most of you know that the center ended up making landfall in this area. Really kind of across the northern Jersey area. But right now, I want you to look at this, because I'm telling you that there's all these errors. I'm showing it to you. So here's the center. Right now, according to this graphic, they were thinking that the center would cross southern Jersey. So if you were in northern Jersey, you were probably breathing a sigh of relief. But look where they had it. Now, as you play it, or as I play it, let's see if we can't do that. And look at that. Here we go. Sorry. It'll shift. And then it goes. Well, it keeps playing. I'll let it keep looping for you guys. Just so you could see there are we own it. We do. Hi, Mary. Hope you're doing well. We own the fact that there are errors. We just don't have as much information, all those data things that they talk about over the water as we do over land. And so as it was moving ashore, it went back and forth. And you see that. We see it all the time. They'll shift west, they'll shift east, and then they have a better handle, not until it gets closer. So they're going to have to lift this. So my hint to you in terms of what's happening here, and, I've said this before. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Yeah, I do. My hint to you guys is it's going to go back and forth. It'll shift a little bit more left or right. And as it keeps going, this is really going to be, an oscillating kind of thing. And we still have a couple of days before, the center crosses. But as it gets closer, and this will be tomorrow, Saturday morning, we're going to start to see impacts here. But once it hits, it's more of a steady course. There'll be far less of a fluctuation. Now, there can be in the aftermath, and it may depend on if these fronts are moving in, if it gets caught in on that high pressure, right? Clockwise flow, it kind of lifts it up. If it gets caught, it can steer it. But right now, we do know it's approaching. It is a major, dangerous hurricane. It's got these 155-mile-an-hour winds. It's a little bit less than it was at its, maximum fury. Remember, that was 185. So we've got some weakening, and we're looking for just some small signs to, I don't know, maybe make us feel a little bit better, because we know it's coming. Moves up the state, moves up the peninsula, both sides, strong hurricane force winds. The coloring here, this is where we've got watches and warnings. Just notice the red, hurricane warning. And so what we're trying to tell folks is, thanks, Aiken. Alex, I used to actually be pretty good at it. I hope your wife's good. I hope she made it to Atlanta okay. The red area hurricane warning, within 36 hours, you're going to get effects. We know this. There is no doubt. Please stop trying to second guess, folks. Stop thinking now because you're an armchair meteorologist or you have friends that are doing this. Oh, I still think it's going to curve. It's not. We would love for that to happen. There would be nothing that makes me happier than to be absolutely wrong. It's not really going to be the case. So again, here's your satellite view. Now, this one's a little bit different. And I did this one on purpose just so you guys could see. I wanted you to see the enormity of Irma, right? And then I wanted you to see Florida. So I'm not trying to scare you guys. Oh, Alex, I'm so glad it was rescheduled. She doesn't need to be driving on the roads. Let's say this is the average diameter, right? Because these are the hurricane force winds, that big bright red area. You see what happens here, right? From the tip of my finger, as it comes in, both sides, east to west coast, all the way up the peninsula, we get hurricane force winds. What happens if it stays across the peninsula? What happens up here to us? Up here to us, we get tropical storm force winds, or if it keeps, more of a tilt to the northwest, we do have some hurricane force winds. there's a couple of things that could work in our favor. I know you are, Gabrielle. All you can do is just kind of give them every piece of information. And honestly, at this point, as long as they are in a secure place, it's not a coastal residency or residence, and they're not in mobile homes, we want everybody to just really be in the safest place. And I'm going to share this with you. You probably don't want to hear it today, but for those of you that have family and friends in South and Central Florida that get impacted first. Method of last resort. Mattress over your head in the bathtub. Mattress over your head in the bathtub, just in case something happens with the roof and things are coming down. But that, honestly, that's the thing that we want you guys to do. So either side, we get it. We're going to get it a little bit stronger, a little more severely, if in fact it moves more toward the west. Obviously a little less of an impact for us if it moves more toward the right, but it's coming in. And right now, if we just kind of bank on what the Hurricane Center is telling us, which is, they think, I'm trying to pull something up and talk to you guys at the same time. They think this is how it takes the path. But again, there's that wobble. That's the cone of uncertainty. Either side, as much as 175 miles in 4 days or 225 in 5 days, but kind of goes back and forth. No, you don't have, Alex, you're in Thomasville. You shouldn't have to evacuate. And the problem, of course, now is everybody's telling me the roads are just chaotic. You should only have to evacuate if you live along the coast or if you're in a mobile home. If you live along the coast or you're in a mobile home, you guys are the ones we want to evacuate. The problem is, yes, Roseanne, it will weaken considerably, and I was going to get to that. The problem is we have too many people on the roads. Over-evacuation. You should be safe as long as you're in an anchored home and you're not on the coastline. If it keeps this path, the only good news is across land we get some weakening. And by the time it heads more toward the north, the intensity would be less. So again, for us, we have that working in our favor. Not down here, but for us. It is moving quickly. Again, that's a positive thing because it'll move in and move out pretty fast. Deborah, I would really like for you to find some friends that have an anchored home. I don't want to hear that you're in a mobile home on Lake Talquin. You're too close for comfort, and all you need is one little bit of a wind gust, and, we could have some serious problems there. The other side is, you guys know we've had some cooler and drier air coming in. So this thing comes up, collides with cool, dry air, and the other possibility, in addition to all the hurricane stuff, wind and rain and storm surge at the coast, tornadoes. And I don't want that to happen. And he said 2 hours to get home from work last night. Yeah, and this is the problem. I don't want you guys to be nervous. I mean, there is but no doubt. All right, as long as you're staying with the fire department, Deborah, it makes me happy. But I don't want you in the mobile home. Do you have friends, or is there a neighbor that you could stay with in something a little more secure? That would make me feel better about this. It comes in hurricane force winds, kind of in a tight area. As it comes up, there should be a little bit of a decrease in the size. So there's a little bit of a decrease in the diameter. And then it should start to weaken. But as quickly as it's moving, we're not going to see the weakening as fast as we'd like. So these are all the things that we're looking at right now. Yes, there's been a little bit of a shift. And I won't be surprised if it goes back and forth a little bit. How about a hotel? Is there something nearby that's not full or packed that you can, Deborah, reach out to them and see if there's a room or something that's available for you? And as a last resort, is it possible that you can sleep at the fire department? That's a solid building. No, Lisa, not Arizona. You actually are really fortunate that you won't get it, and I know that you're looking out for everybody here. We also, and I don't really want to be the bearer of bad news, but there's 3 at the same time. Katya, not so worried about. Jose's on the backside here. It is also a Category 4 hurricane, 150 mile per hour winds. The other part of this would be that the steering currents won't change very soon, so we're going to have to keep our eyes on that. So there is Irma, still moving west-northwest, not really going to be changing very much. Let me show you. This is the thing I was talking to you guys about. Yeah, I've seen, Gabrielle, that there are some shelters that have been opening pretty quickly, which is really very good. And this must be just really, really busy, this page that I'm trying to load for you guys. But here's the map that shows you the earliest arrival of those winds. So I'll go back. It's not going to load for me. we're looking in South Florida Saturday morning. Up here, here's Sunday morning, 8 a.m. That's the earliest possible arrival. Don't think it moved away if you don't have winds until later in the day. That's the thing. The cooler the air, is it really going to do anything, Donna? Only because it's the warm water that's the fuel for the hurricane. I know, I'm a little concerned. That's all. Just stay with me on this. So the cooler air, the only thing that honestly can do is it can help to trigger something on the other side, which is, of course, tornadoes. Cold, dry, warm, humid. So there's that. But at this point, all we're doing is watching what this hurricane is going to do. So this is not going to load. I wanted to show you the models and what they were thinking. But, the trend has been the same. There was the storm, right? Here it is. I'm going to get rid of the forecast points now. We had a front. The front was coming down. The front is stalled out, but it's going to fall apart. Big high pressure, and that really is our steering thing. And that's kind of what we need in order to get this thing to start to curve up a little bit. So Aiken Northwood Baptist Church and Northwest on I-10 is closest to the shelter to Lake Talquin. There you go. Deborah, read that what Aiken wrote. So this way there's a shelter nearby in case you have to go. And I just want you to have some place that in case you change your mind. I understand you have animals, but, if you can secure them and then you guys could stay at the shelter, that would be fantastic. And that honestly would be the thing that may make you have a little bit of a peace of mind. So that may be really, really helpful for you guys. Okay, so it's, what is it? It's, let's see, we're at, this is the 2 o'clock advisory, by the way. When I showed you all that, we'll have to pull it up. That's our 2 o'clock advisory. 2, 5, 8, 11. 2, 5, 8, 11. AM and PM. So this is 2 o'clock. The next advisory is going to come out at 5. And honestly, when there's either a migration east or west, it usually comes out in the 5 o'clock because they've been flying through all day. We've got a couple of planes kind of crisscrossing at different heights, and all of those data are used into the next runs. And then the Hurricane Center will sit down and the guys will say, okay, if they feel confident there's really a shift, then they'll adjust. If they don't shift, they're pretty confident that it's doing what it's going to do. So again, confidence really high here. Coming up Cuba, really, really high. Not much of a disparity here. You see the cone isn't really wide. It widens across the peninsula, and we could have a best case scenario if it stays well to our east. We could have the worst case scenario if it shifts more to the west. So, those are a couple of things that we're all thinking at this point. It's been a while. We started to, you're seeing my wall at this point. We started preparation last weekend and we're a week into this, and it seems like, we're all anxious. I get it. Try to be patient, try to be calm. Keep watching. That's all you can do at this point is keep watching, because there's nothing that, we're going to change tomorrow, honestly, because early in the morning is when it's going to start hitting the state of Florida or impacting at least South Florida. I think that's when we first start to really recognize and maybe have the confidence that it's going the way we think it's going. So, you hear it all the time. I've said it all the time. I hate to, be so repetitive, but it's prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Your method of last resort, whether you're here or in Central or South Florida, mattress over your head in the bathtub. Bonnie says, I heard reports earlier today that not me, that made me think Tallahassee should evacuate. No. I'm going to tell you the same thing. Unless you are a coastal resident or a mobile home resident, you shouldn't have to. We're going to get the impact. I think what happened is everybody, we looked around and all the roads were packed. Everybody's leaving, should I? And we have a problem we now have identified, and this is since 2004. We call it over-evacuation. So we get too many people on the roads at the same time, and there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of temperament. So we unless we tell you, you have to. And, oh, by the way, let me just show you this. So maybe this will help make you feel a bit better. Not me, but this. Right? Remember, the whole thing is going counterclockwise. If we go counterclockwise, and let's assume it keeps that position, which is 2 hours east, everything for us is offshore. So even for the coastal residents, the storm surge shouldn't be that high. Not up here. And yes, certainly down across central and even the lower tip of the peninsula, but not up here because of that clockwise turning. So that would be a little bit helpful. What if your tub is, oh yeah, if your tub is an external wall, well, grab the mattress. Do you have an inside closet, Liz? Do you have something that is more solid that, you can put as many walls, between the outside and where you're going to be? Because that would be it. I mean, that's really your method of last resort. And, that's the kind of thing that we do. But this is honestly, in case, something is falling onto your house, just grab the mattress and hold it over your head so nothing hits you or impacts you. And that really is what we want everybody to be thinking about. So I'm not seeing any major changes right now. It's doing this. We said yesterday it was going to do this. It's doing this. Riding up the backbone of Cuba. So there it is. 155 mile an hour winds. Has an arch entry. That's interesting. Can you invert a couch? Is there something in an inside room, Liz, that you can invert and maybe, stuff a mattress on top? And this is really your method of last resort. As long as you're in a relatively safe place away from the coastline, but, certainly everybody's getting something here. And it's hard to imagine that the state of Florida is immune, but perhaps over by the Pensacola area, and that may only be about it. So this is 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock this afternoon. This is the latest from the Hurricane Center. The thinking right now is it continues doing what it's doing. And as it continues doing what it's doing, that big system is approaching our area. So I think we'll start to see some pictures tonight from Cuba to see exactly how they have dealt with this and how it's impacted them. Mountains are interacting. So hopefully it can kind of help to A, dry it out because you've got some dry land here, and then B, the rough terrain because of the mountains, maybe slow down the winds, but don't bank on it. And that's what I want to keep encouraging you guys. Don't bank on it turning. Don't bank on it decreasing in terms of its speed or in terms of its intensity. It's going to continue moving the way I have shown you it's going to move. We're not really wavering on how the motion overall is going to be handled. So west-northwest, steady motion here. And I had said this yesterday, if you guys were with me, and I know some of you were, if it crosses that 80-degree longitude, that's where Florida would have more of an impact. And so even the forecast position is on the opposite or the western side of that 80-degree longitude. And so that's why there's more of an impact. If we could just get it to turn before that, we take it out to sea. So I just wanted to help, hopefully, try to ease your minds. I honestly, I don't have all the answers. I know there's anxiousness. I have heard a lot of people say, I'm afraid. You prepare. You do everything you can. So today I called it Ziploc Day. Today is the day you fill those Ziplocs about 3/4 of the way with water. You stuff them all around everything in your freezer. And this way, there's some time here. They will freeze up and you have really a nice cold freezer to keep all the food, at that whatever temperature it needs to be. And I know it shouldn't really drop much, warm up above freezing. I'll remember how to speak in a second here. And that's helpful because even if it were to melt, and hopefully this would be down the road, then you have some fresh water. So you didn't spend a whole lot of money on that. The other side of it, I'll talk about St. Pete in a second. Don't be scared. Just be ready for this. So today is Ziploc Day. We're doing that. Tomorrow, wash and dishes. Tomorrow's laundry and dishes. Again, not trying to get you guys to do chores, but these are good storage sites. So in your dishwasher, you can put some things that maybe you don't want the water getting in, or you want to make sure you have it in and I'm so glad that so many of you have done the Ziploc thing, but you don't want maybe water getting into it. You can put them in other Ziploc bags and just kind of stow them in the dishwasher and or the washing machine. And so that's a good place for that to be. So clear everything out. The other side is, just in case we lose power, you already want to have done your wash so that you have some clothes that you can be wearing. Of course, in the aftermath, if we lose power, use paper products. I know it's wasteful. We can't always be green, especially when we're in urgent and an emergency situation. So I think we will have to kind of deal with all that. I think for the St. Pete area, is that what you were thinking, Deborah? You wanted me to? Yeah, St. Pete. All right, so let's see what's going on down there. Same thing is happening. You've got, here's the storm. If this holds up, it stays, to its right. So it's a little bit good in terms of everything would be offshore. However, when it's down here, it's offshore. When it finally moves up, especially in the bay, It's more of an onshore. Hopefully it weakens some, because now it'll be across land a lot. And so that, A, should help to dry it out, and then B, the rough terrain should help. It's not very rough, but at least it should help to kind of slow it down. A little bit of friction here. So Mary got an email from Ashley. You guys need to know. Mary's daughter is in British Virgin Islands. She hadn't heard from her, I think, in a couple of days, and she did hear from her today saying that she was safe. So we're also really happy for you, Mary, by the way. So here it is, St. Pete, Tampa St. Pete area. Here's where, if it moves to the north, here's where everything starts to come on shore. But again, over the land, a little bit of a less of an impact because of the land and the fact that it would dry out. I don't know that it helps very much, because as it's coming, you've got hurricane force winds. First, it'll be tropical storm, and then on the inside, where you get closer to the center, that's where you've got the hurricane force winds. So there was a lawyer friend in Jacksonville who's due with her first baby tomorrow. Here's what I know. I have a friend that messaged me from West Palm. She's 7.5 months into it. There are women that may go into labor in their last trimester during a hurricane due to the pressure difference. And I have heard that before. And honestly, all you can do is make sure that you have some phone numbers and a place that you can go in case any of this happens. But we're all just doing our best here. I don't have any additional information. I'm not going to tell you it's going to do this or it's going to do that, and I differ or I'm in disagreement. I agree with them. These are the guys that we rely on because they have the expertise and they have the education, and they are so experienced, they're really good at this. I do know there's a left adjustment, a western adjustment on 3 days. That's what we've been seeing, right? Since yesterday, we got that little bit of a nudge to the west. And then normally, the other side of it is, once it starts to come in, there's the other side. There's a little bit of a right adjustment. So again, it's going to wobble. It'll go back and forth. Don't be surprised. Don't start thinking if it goes one way or the other, it's going to have less or more of an impact. I'm trying to get you guys not to panic. And I don't honestly know if I have helped you with anything at this point, but today, I think a lot of people, it's been a while. We've prepared. We've done everything. Every time I turn around, I'm calling my husband like, do you think we need this? Do you think we need that? Is there something else that we should be doing? I've done everything we can. I tried to stop by a couple of friends to just kind of check on them, and I've asked you guys to do the same thing. You have neighbors. Some of you know them. Some of you don't. But go introduce yourself. Make sure they know what's going on. Make sure they are ready. Make sure that they have some supplies. I saw the stories, and some of us have posted some of these things. There's, I think, some short tempers. Maybe we're not as patient as we should be. So be kind, be patient, be forgiving. Okay, so this was the 2 o'clock advisory, right? 2 o'clock, remember, 2, 5, 8, and 11, both AM and PM. Every 3 hours we get the advisories. This was the 2 o'clock. 5 o'clock we'll get the next one. So I think at this point, that's where we are. We know where it's coming. Let's see what happens at 5. Let's see if they start to nudge, again, the tracks a little bit one way or the other. Remember, tomorrow morning is when it really does start to impact Florida. And if anything's going to change, I promise you, you'll know, and I will be one of the first, because I'm not really sleeping very much, to tell you what's happening here. So I'm still trying to do my best on Facebook to keep you guys aware of exactly what's going on. But just know that at this point, assume that as they're telling you this information, it's accurate. And try to be patient. I know it's, I kind of want it to be over with at this point, and I'm sure you guys are feeling the same exact way. We can't push it any faster. We can't push it away. So we have prepared. We have done everything we're supposed to. And, good for us. We've done everything. Also, if you can, try not to compare it with another storm. Well, this one did this, or this one did that. They're all unique. Kind of like people. They're all unique. They don't behave the same exact way. They don't behave the way you'd want them to, or the way you think they're going to. Heck, even when we think we know exactly what's going to happen, they'll mess with us a little bit. One of my favorite expressions is, we plan, God laughs. Kind of like Mother Nature's doing the same thing. All right, 155-mile-an-hour winds, west-northwest for us in Tallahassee. The earliest arrival of some tropical storm force winds should be Sunday. I think maybe if you're a little bit more toward the southeast, you might see a little bit earlier in the day on Sunday, but honestly, maybe more toward the afternoon for us. So let's chat at 5. At 5 o'clock, when we get the next advisory, we can all get something to drink, maybe a little bit of food. You know, don't let yourself get run down when all this is happening, because you still have a lot to go through. So let's chat then. And honestly, quick questions on Facebook. I can't do the messenger thing because I'm getting too much of that, and I need to get some things done. So Mike wants to remind me, keep in mind that the most dangerous animals. Yeah, I know, Mike. And the good news is that they have changed the laws, so a lot of the hotels allow for you to bring pets. And they have to allow for you to do that. Many of the shelters will allow for you to bring your pets there as well, but please check with them first. And a lot of these resources are available on the internet, so it's kind of a nice place that you can get a lot of good information, and you guys are really good at sharing it. But he's determined to have, oh my gosh. They're going to leave Birmingham tomorrow to start their pre-planned vacation in Cape San Blas. Yes. Bonnie, they're absolutely crazy. Who drives into a storm? Honestly, and I can't even tell you how bothered I am by seeing this, because that really, couldn't they just wait? I mean, tomorrow's Saturday. I'm wrong. Let's assume I'm wrong. I'm the craziest human being. I have no intelligence, and the hurricane doesn't even hit. If they wait and they come down, let's say it's late Sunday, because by then it would be long gone, would that kill them? I think certainly driving down to the coast in the middle of a storm is something that could kill them, and then there's really no way to dress it up. They're going down to a place that we want people to evacuate as a hurricane comes along the coast. It's really one of the most dangerous things that they can do. So not just crazy, Bonnie, but honestly, it's a little bit more severe than that. And you can only encourage them and tell them so much. It'll make you crazy, because you got to keep yourself safe. You got to keep your other family and friends safe as well. All right, so I'm going to say goodbye for now, guys. We will chat after the 5 o'clock comes out. Be strong, be kind, be patient. Forgive those that are mean. Bye.